warm welcome to our Leaders Exchange series, hosted by Global Talent Exchange and BridgeLabz. I'm Avinash. I'm one of the founders of Global Talent Exchange. It's really amazing to be amongst an eminent panel like yourselves, and I'm really looking forward for a fantastic discussion here and a lot of takeaways for each one of us.
About navigating tech employability in such a disruptive workplace where we're seeing so many layoffs, we're seeing high rates of attrition. What would you really say is the cause of such a sudden increase in mass layoffs, especially in tech?
Currently, from a tech industry, what we are witnessing is large-scale challenges from a supply chain and inventory management. Given that such major economies, and in Europe, given the war, all these macroeconomic factors are leading to the belt tightening, as we say, of the companies or the employers. It's not about today, but it's about the future. How do we continue to keep up with the supply and demand equation, which is resulting obviously in the layoffs, as we hear, where they're shedding the load. And let's also understand the last resort is typically impacting people. The first and foremost would be several other ways in which they look at the budgets. No one would like to let go of people as the first go. It's always last resort when you don't have any other options, and then you do the layoffs. So I think we've arrived here. 23 calendar year is going to be a tough year from that perspective in the technology landscape specifically.
We had people who had at least 3 to 4 offers in hand. People went offer shopping. Companies wanted to retain them. They paid, to match the offers. They paid extra amounts to just retain them into the organization. And then the amounts went up, the CTCs went up so high that today you do not see the value coming in. You don't know whether, the amount that I'm really paying out is the value that I'm getting from the resource. So it's become more and more important now for the organizations to actually look at and say, hey, where am I in terms of the skill required to the delivery? Because at the end of the day, what matters is the balance sheet for the business. So it's the balance sheet. If I do not see value in hiring those folks, paying high value out, it may so happen that the USP that we always had of delivering quality with the minimal payouts that we are giving, or not minimal, but the value that you bring to the table, the value that the employee brings to the table for the compensation that the person is drawing, has somewhere started diminishing.
That engineers, there are about 1.5 million engineers who pass out every year, right? And there is enough talent, so as to say. But when they do pass out, they're not ready for, directly getting productive on jobs. Therefore, a lot of organizations can't really recruit them and directly, get them to be working and be productive from day one, right? And this, on the other hand, you see that one of the manpower surveys that we've seen is that worldwide, the tech talent shortage is at a 16-year high, right? So there is talent who's not ready, and there is demand which is like outstripping, supply by multiples. And therefore, this is a coin we sort of always say that it's an empty pond syndrome, right? There is fish, but there aren't enough fish, and the fish which are going around are the same fish which are being recycled. So, during COVID and otherwise, you saw that digitization actually is being taken up in a mass scale. Non-tech organizations are also actually getting into technology, trying to get all their systems digitized, which is the need where this is where the talent requirement is actually continuously going up.
The point is, we talk so much about recruiting, talent needs and everything. We don't, I think, as and personally to myself, and I was thinking, and as industry leaders, both from our HR plus business side, we never spend time to actually train or focus on building the talent at the entry stage. we want everything plug and play. We want everyone day one productive. We want everyone who can just start, being a Michael Schumacher or a celebrity star who can just perform all magics for us. But we don't have the time and energy to spend to train those people.
The traditional research and development roles in automobile industry have moved to the next level. And when I say move to the next level, what I mean to say is that the traditional methods and the traditional processes we employ to do research and development in automobile have now moved on to include things like IoT, or things like let's say connected cars, or things like human machine interface, where hardly anyone has any clue. A guy working for 30 years in the industry is also a learner right now. Or say electric vehicles, right, where India is 10 years behind China or Europe, right, in terms of design and development, and we are playing catch up. Here is an opportunity where it's a unique opportunity where, in my opinion, the playing field has leveled out.
It all boils down to talent strategy at the end of the day. And when it comes to opportunity, I think it's both ways. Not only academia, but also the workplaces need to focus on what they really want. Essentially, what problem I have been seeing across the industry, why the layoffs, what is really missing, people don't really get to the roots, and they don't really try to identify, do we really need XYZ amount of talent to kind of deliver what we want to deliver? Or is it just that we are looking at the competition because the competition is hiring, we need to do the hiring? Are we looking at the skill set or not? Are we looking at the product lines and actually making the right decisions? I think it boils down to that pointer, right? And then can go back to colleges, identify the right kind of resources that you want to bring in, tie both, not only the fresh talent, but also the experienced talent, that is the talent that you've brought into the organization, enhance it, enrich it, give them the opportunity.
Programs. In various markets, what we see as a differentiator between India and others is we do not look at interns as a future talent pipeline, or we do not look at fresh pool of folks to come in as a future talent, but rather seeing them as a cost arbitrage solution at the current moment.
And a lot of training. And when you look at training is always mass training, right? You put people into a room, you tell them something to do, and everybody does the same thing, and then there is a particular benchmark. And so this all happens in a very mass grooming or mass training or mass learning kind of a way, right? And if the problem to be solved is because every organization, even if you have say got Java or a full stack technology, every organization implements it in its own way. So eventually, when one talent comes in, for one organization on a particular tech stack, he might end up doing things quite differently from somebody else in some other. So the problem to be solved is, how do you make the exact customization to the job for every talent who comes in, and that training cannot solve. You need to make it into an experiential learning where they actually work on the problems that they will be doing on the shop floor on a daily basis. When they come out ready for that kind of customized, and then you take them into your organization, they will hit the ground running.
While we're talking about talent shortage or industry readiness, and we're drawing parallels from, medical or legal or, the chartered accountancy and so on, those are all much more mature, in terms of when they started those professions from an India landscape perspective. Tech industry is relatively new. It's still, while we're talking about 20, 30 years, so it's still at its nascency. And only in the last decade or so, we started talking about what we refer to as GCCs in India, that is Global Capability Centers. So that's again a new coinage. Earlier, we started off, as we all know, the BPOs or, more of the low value add kind of a work. That's how it all began in India. And then it went into the high value add. Even today, we have large tranches of what we refer to as services industry. That's where we actually become the backbone for the entire globe with the software and other services which we're offering. But if we go beyond, the high technology is still at a nascent stage from a global capability centers. So it's how you create that ramp up. So industry is struggling because of the supply and demand, because there's huge demand, but supply is not yet ready in the shape or in the way we want it to be.
Again, alluding to the fact that some of the other panelists have spoken about is the shelf life of technology itself, right? I mean, there was a study by Gartner which says, if you put 1, 2, and you add another 2 more combination to the primary skill, say a Java, right? The pipeline reduces by almost 90%, right? So that idealism is all upon what is really required by your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the niche talent that we're talking about, a lot of industry surveys have been done, especially on the tech talent perspective, right? And one of the points that I think Vivek brought in, there's a lot of software which is coming into the automotive space. Similarly, there is a lot of software which is getting into the healthcare space, etc. So a lot of things are getting data-driven. AI driven. So you will see a lot of data science, you'll see a lot of cloud infra kind of positions coming up. And there's a demand which is for all these roles, right? So, I was going through one of the surveys which was conducted by, I think, LinkedIn and Naukri, or, one of those institutions. Positions have gone up by 40% in the last, 3 to 4 months. And that is where, we are also facing a little bit of a challenge in hiring those people. Similarly, cloud, I think cloud has gone up by 60%. So, I would say that the pandemic has thrown in a lot of new things to us. And all of us are trying to kind of depend more and more on technology, right? So that is when this, race also is coming, where we saw a lot of upswing in the talent and stuff like that. We saw that we overhired a lot of, instances.
The most sought out skills right now is not your big data, it's not your data science. It's something called as purple skills. Purple skills is quite simply a combination of red and blue. Red talks about the technical skills and blue talks about the business skills. We are spending, I can't tell you the amount of money and effort we're putting in to just get the purple skills together.
I think coming to the soft skills, communication is very, very clear. I'm not talking about spoken language, right? For example, you take an example from Netflix. So Netflix a year ago was really going through a big problem. And when the root cause of the problem was they have a large team sizes working on problem statements. The communication has become a problem. As a leader, to communicate to 200 team size and 300 team size is not easy. So they shrink the team size into short teams. And today they nicely pulled back themselves, and they came back and hit staying in the competition, right? So those pieces are very, very important for teams to build strongly for future, so that you're focusing on the problem statement. Like once Steve Jobs in one of the interviews was also clearly stating that in Apple, all the leadership members sit on a weekly basis to talk about the problem statements, and they take everybody's view, not from only COEs or views from all sides, so that they're very, very focused on the problem statement.
You talk about niche talents, getting into the organization, or probably how do you get that? We forget about one thing. It's a kind of not just finding talents, but how do you retain your existing talents? And what's the employee experience that they have while they are in the organization? I think there's a lot of word of mouth that goes around. And how do you attract talent? It's not about the Glassdoor reviews that you have, but it is all about what people talk about leaders in the organization. What's the kind of experience that they have while they are in the organization? Those things speak a lot. So it becomes much more easier when your organization has progressive policies, which would actually attract talents.
Never stops, if I can put it that way. You may not hire for say new positions, but you'll always be hiring for your backfills. That cycle, I think so, will not stop as such. It may slow down, it may right size, if I can.
Lovely listening into those diverse views from experienced folks here on the panel. Of course, this dialogue, like I mentioned, always will continue.